Hey guys, how you doing? Hey, so I wanted to talk to you guys real quick about Project MethTL here. So we bought this car a few months ago. Actually, it's back in, I think, November. And bought this for a daily driver. Hadn't really done anything with it film-wise because it's just an 05 Acura TL. We weren't really planning on doing anything with it. But it turned into a huge mess, as they often do, especially when you buy something from a meth head, which is what happened to us. So we found this car on Facebook. Actually, a friend of my son's, Brock, actually brought this to my attention, and it's a little Acura, and the guy had it for sale for like $2,500. And so I started chatting the guy up, and we kind of come up with a plan to go down and look at it. The story is where this all gets really interesting. So this car, in perfect condition, good running condition and all that, is worth $500 to $6,500. Okay, it has a 3.3 liter Acura or Honda J32 engine. It's 3.2 liter, sorry, and so 3.2 V6. And the problem was that while the guy was working on the car, he said he put a new clutch in it. Somebody came by and stole the cats and the starter off the car. And it's really like stole. Is kind of really how this really should be. So because of that, we couldn't start it. And we go down there and pick it up with my trailer. That's where all the chaos begins. First, the guy is like 30 minutes late. And when he gets there, he's all jittery and running around like a chicken with his head cut off. And my son is like, "Dad, this guy is a total meth head." I'm like, "No, he's just busy. He's just got stuff to do. Give him the benefit of the doubt, right?" So I go up to the car, I put my hands on the crank, and I'm able to turn it by hand a little bit. So I'm like, okay, so we should be good. And we get it loaded. Of course, while we're starting to load it, I noticed that the passenger side rear tire is not rolling. It's completely locked up. And so we just have to drag it, and this thing is clearly slammed. It is significantly lowered. Could barely get it on our trailer. Right now it's sitting up a little higher because we actually have a jack underneath the front of it. But we get this thing on the trailer, dragging this wheel. It never freed up. And I go on the internet and I order a couple of new cats and a starter for it. And I get the cats, I get the starter, I have to order 4 oxygen sensors. So I'm now into this. I've got an extra $500 into this thing. I made a deal with the guy for $1,500. Okay, has a clean title. It's got the 3.2. But the reason that we want this thing in the first place is because of that. It's got a 6-speed, and that makes daily drivers fun. So that was the whole point, the whole reason we wanted this car. So I bought this car for $1,500. I've got an extra $500 in it. So now I've got $2,000 in this car. Okay, great. It's worth $500 to $6,500. No problem. Should be a really great project. So I'm waiting for parts, and I had to order them off of eBay, so it took several weeks to get everything that we needed. And we finally get the parts. Well, the weather wasn't good, so we ended up letting the car sit for another month or month and a half. And we get it off the trailer. As we're getting it off the trailer, lo and behold, this wheel frees itself up, which is a good thing because I was going to take the wheels off so I could figure out why it was frozen up. Well, it turns out every single lug on this car has a security key, but it's a splined security key, and there's nothing out there. I cannot find any spline drive lug key that will fit these wheels. So these wheels are on here until I can figure out how to get these things off. Every single lug has the security key on it, so that really sucks. So luckily this freed up. And we get it out, we get it into the shop, I put it on the lift, and I put the caps on, I put the O2s in, I put the starter in, I rig up the exhaust because it had been hacked up pretty badly, and I hop in, I hit the key, and it cranks. Great, awesome, but that's all it does. So I'm like, okay, what do we got going on? I pull codes, and there was a crank sensor code. I get out, we get under the lift, the crank sensor was unplugged. So I get that plugged in, we go back in, I cleared all the codes, crank it again, nothing. So now we start doing some more diagnostic work, and we find out there's no spark. We've got fuel, the fuel works. Well, that was another funny thing actually. I put fuel in it and I hit the key, I forgot about this part. I hit the key and I start smelling gas. Well, the fuel lines were disconnected from the tank because apparently the guy I bought it from decided he needed the gas out of it, and he pumped all the gas out and didn't hook the lines back up. So I fixed that. Then we're trying to crank it, trying to get it started, nothing. So I'm doing a bunch of research, and I find that a really common problem on these Acuras is the ignition switch. So under the dash, we'll go over here. Under the dash, there is a little module. And this little module right here. Okay, right there. So you gotta take all the steering column apart. Actually, that's the old one right there. Okay, so your key doesn't actually do anything. The key operates a little mechanism that operates this deal, and this is where everything happens. Well, what happens is that will wear out, and you can have some really funky issues. You can have a power draw, you can have intermittent running where you'll be driving and it'll just shut off. But most often you get the situation we had where the car will crank but it won't start because that little module there isn't giving a signal to the ECM to trigger the ignition. So, okay, that's really common. It's a $20 part. We're gonna go ahead and get that. So I get that, another couple weeks go by, I get it, I put it in, still doesn't start. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit deeper. I've got a fair amount of extra money in this car that I wasn't expecting, and so we gotta figure this out. Now the problem here this whole time is I'm working by myself. So if I need to do something under the hood, I got to get out of the car, go in there, look at it, come back, hit the key. So I can't watch what's happening. So I get a buddy of mine to come out, and I'm in the car, and I hit the key, and he goes, well, there's your problem. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, come out in here and look. And I come out, and he hits the key, and he had taken the inspection covers off the cams. And this right here, let me pull this out of the way. So this is your timing gear right here for the front head, and that's timing gear for the rear head. Well, the engine was cranking, but these weren't turning. So we pull the whole system apart, and here's the timing belt. It's a brand new timing belt, by the way. The guy told me he put a new timing belt on it. Well, that is what the timing belt looked like. So this is where the timing belt was sitting on the crank. The crank chewed up the timing belt because while the front cam here will turn, this one is completely locked up, completely seized in the head. So these are bearing journal, these are journal bearing cams, so they don't actually have bearings, they just ride on a journal that's bored in the head. So you can't, that's a big job to fix. I could get a new head or a remanufactured head for about $1,000, And that's way too much to put into an engine that has 250,000 miles on it. So I was faced with a conundrum. What do? I have $2,000 in a daily driver car that I picked up, and I can either take a loss and just junk it, or maybe try to part it out and take 6 months to a year to get my money back, or I can try to find another engine. So I go searching. I find LKQ has these engines all over the country, nothing close, unfortunately, and they're all 150, 160,000 mile engines. Not too bad. This one has 250 on it, and they're about $1,200, and I really didn't want to spend that. But I'm searching Facebook Marketplace, and I find a 2004 TL down in Dallas at a salvage yard. And they had a good running engine out of that 04, which is this guy right here, 107,000 miles. So this has 107,000 miles on it. Barely broke in for one of these Honda engines. And so we are going to take this and swap it in to what we call the MFTL, and hopefully get this thing off the ground, or on the ground I should say, and get it running so we can drive it and have some fun with this little 6-speed Acura. So this has been a pretty wild adventure so far. I think it's going to be a fun project once we get it done, but we're going to have some more for you guys later. We didn't film any of that process previously because I didn't expect this to be anything that anybody would be interested in, but when you buy a car from a meth head, sometimes you get smoked. Let's make magic.